hope that practice is really helping you shift some things around, feel more connected, more peaceful, more clear and focused, and start to really manifest the things that you want in your life. Today, we are going to talk about the ego and making friends with it. So, the ego is a very often misunderstood idea or presence. We do need the ego to survive, and that's why we have it. We need a sense of self, we need a sense of identity and separateness. We need enough of an ego to have ambition, to go out and make money, to get food, to get shelter, and to take care of ourselves, and to strive to be the best that we can. Otherwise, we would perish and we wouldn't evolve. That being said, the ego often gets far out of whack and out of balance. So we need a way to really monitor that and to view the ego from an outside spiritual perspective. Just like we have all kinds of bugs and bacteria that live inside of our body, good and bad. I know it's kind of a scary thing to think about, but there are a lot of organisms that live within us with their own separate consciousness. And just like it's important that we don't just kill everything, that's why when we do cleanses, a lot of times it's advised that you reintroduce some probiotics, because we don't want to just kill everything off or we wouldn't be healthy and survive. We need a certain amount of these things, just like with the ego. We don't want to just kill our ego, right? That's a big spiritual misconception that happens. When we're completely egoless, then the rest of our physical lives suffer. So since we did choose to come and incarnate in these cool body things that we have, we do need to take care of them in order to take care of our spirit. So even if spirituality is still the main goal, we need to have that balance between mind, body, and spirit, or else we have none of it in the long run. So how do we make friends with this ego, and what is its main goal or purpose? Well, like we said before, the main purpose is survival. But what happens is that the ego tries to completely take over. It wants to run the whole show, and it's kind of like a parasite where it just starts to feed and feed, and all it can do is focus on getting more and more. So that's when it becomes a problem. So that's kind of when we need to take control from a spiritual perspective and keep it in check. This is why it's really, really important to get in touch with ourselves and our truth, and with our higher spiritual self. So when we understand our bigger purpose for being here on life, on earth, and we understand what it takes for us to maintain our spiritual connection and our spiritual health, we're able to view the ego as if it's like a little child. And we're able to come from that parental perspective. As long as we can kind of maintain that separation and control over our ego, we can use it to our advantage. So whenever you see somebody that is being driven primarily by their ego, you'll start to see things that, especially now, having this conversation, you'll start to see things a little differently. So one of the ways you can tell is that maybe a person, maybe yourself or someone you know, starts to, go after these material goals. But every time they meet a material goal, they are getting farther and farther away from happiness. So oftentimes, especially with what we're fed in society and advertising and media, we're fed that by getting these things, this nice car, this nice house, this new pair of shoes, that's going to bring us happiness. And that's what the ego believes. That's what the ego wants us to believe. So the ego spends all of its time and energy, and our time and energy, if we let it, going after these shiny objects. There's nothing wrong with shiny objects. I love shiny objects. But we have to keep a clear perspective on the importance of them. So when we start to go after these things thinking that it's going to give us this fulfillment, that's when it becomes a problem. If we go after fulfillment and those things are a byproduct, then everything is fine. Then we can maintain our energy, we can maintain our mission, our purpose, and our spiritual perspective. So another way you can kind of realize is the ego may be starting to demand an abundance of comforts. So our spiritual self doesn't really seek comfort. It seeks growth, which is kind of the opposite of comfort, right? It kind of seeks, in a way, discomfort, because when we're learning and growing, it's a little bit uncomfortable, and then we might reach a place where we're comfortable for a little bit. But overall, our spiritual higher selves came here to earth to fulfill a purpose, to learn and grow. And that's not going to happen by being comfortable. But the ego's main purpose and goal is to try to be comfortable. It thinks that once we get enough, or we eat enough, or we, hook up with enough people, or we make enough money, or whatever the case may be, that we're going to get to a place of feeling complete. But it's a lie, and I'm sure that you've experienced that, and you know that that's not the truth. So, understanding the ego's purpose, which is just to keep us alive, we need enough of the ego to help us have that drive, to help us have that little bit of competitive edge, whether it's against, society or ourselves, so that we're striving and trying to reach our goals. And it has just enough of that individuality, so that we're able to differentiate our mission and our needs and our goals from other people. Not meaning that we can't work with other people that have the similar mission, but we essentially, like a snowflake or a fingerprint, we all have our unique mission and purpose, and no two are alike. So maintaining that is really, really important. So the best way to make friends with your ego is to acknowledge the ego. Acknowledge it and appreciate it. It's like a kid, they're going to keep trying to get your attention until you acknowledge them, okay? So when we acknowledge the ego for doing good, it does more good. And when we pay attention to the ego and get sucked in when it's misbehaving, then it's going to learn that that's how it gets our attention, and it does more of that. So we can actually train our ego, kind of like a puppy or a child or another person. We train people all the time how to treat us, and it's not a demeaning thing. It's just naturally, unconsciously how we act. We train people for better or worse, depending on our past lives and our sacred contracts that are in place on how to treat us all the time. So we're gonna do the same thing with the ego. When the ego is doing the things that are bringing us closer to our overall goals in spiritual proportion, we're gonna acknowledge it, and we're gonna give a positive feedback from an outside parental perspective. And developing this kind of separation from yourself and your ego is kind of the main goal here. So it's really, really important to first develop that relationship. So you're kind of taking your focus that you are learning through using these meditation practices, and you're directing it in a really advanced way to become this watcher of yourself. So it's not that you're not ever going to be, unconscious, letting these things kind of naturally happen, but checking in with that relationship, and from that disconnected kind of space where you're the watcher of the ego and of yourself, is really important to start to develop over time. So making sure that you're spending time with checking with yourself before meditations, during meditations, and after meditations, to discover what it is that your spiritual self is here to do, and making those a priority. So through this time, you're going to start to gain more and more clear insights, intuitions, and inspirations to take spiritual actions. So you'll start to really feel the difference, whether it's an egoic drive or a spiritual drive. And as time goes on, it becomes easier and easier to see where a craving is coming from, where an idea is coming from, so you'll be able to kind of differentiate, okay, is this something that I should follow, or is this something that I should watch? Is this something that I should acknowledge and dive into, or is this something that I should kind of acknowledge and move in a different direction? So checking in with yourself, keeping, a journal. I really believe that writing is a very, very important part of this practice, to check in with yourself, and so that you can look back over time as well. But as soon as you put something in writing, you're creating a contract. So you're creating a contract with yourself, creating a contract with your future self. You're rewriting something. So if you have a sacred contract in place from a past life that's not working anymore, you can rewrite that. It's very powerful. Writing is very, very powerful. So do it with caution. Do it with a clear mind. Do it after your meditation, and start to really understand the difference between who you really are, your spiritual self, your spiritual mission and purpose, and your ego. And that's when you can start to really create a life that is fulfilling. That is when you can really step into living your purpose, because it's very hard to see when those lines are getting blurred, because our entire lives, our ego has been building this case. It's been taking the clues, and it's been doing its best to really help us to get the most out of life, but it just has gotten a little bit misguided as well. So we can use a lot of that really important stuff that the ego has collected for us, but we really need to make sure that we are coming at it from a different spiritual perspective. So there's a little bit more you can dive deeper in if you go into the literature. Hopefully this made sense for you on how to kind of bring in that awareness and bring it into your everyday life and bring it into your practice. It should really give you a sense of freedom when you start to see that you don't have to chase down these things that you maybe once thought you did. My goals throughout my life have changed, and sometimes I'll reach a goal and then I'll go in a different direction. Sometimes I realize that the goal was never mine to begin with, and that my ego was creating this goal because of the person that it wanted me to present. And so then I'm able to shift out of that. I felt like a real failure for a long time because of this one goal that I had set for myself. And later, after really deep introspection, I realized that I didn't accomplish this goal because it wasn't my truth. And my higher self knew that that wasn't what I really wanted in life. But I had this blindfold on for years that my main purpose and my main goal and driving factor was this one goal. And really, it was just the ego trying to find security and importance, and it was sabotaging me. It was draining my energy. It made me feel sad and depressed. It made me feel unworthy. I felt like a failure, and all this time, it wasn't even something that was my real truth. So this is really an important step. So please don't overlook it. Spend some time with this, and maybe try to figure out what goals that you've had for yourself. What have you accomplished? What haven't you accomplished? Maybe there's a bigger reason that you haven't accomplished something that for years you thought you're supposed to accomplish. Is there something that in your life has been making you feel like a failure, or has been draining your energy, or making you feel sad? Have you been comparing yourself to other people, thinking that you should be at a certain place, but you haven't been able to accomplish that? In this world, we really are supposed to be able to do, be, and have anything. So if we're not accomplishing something, there's a deeper reason for that. And we are the ones that aren't allowing ourselves to do so. Sometimes there are things that we are supposed to fulfill on our mission, and sometimes they're not. So doing this kind of meditation of asking yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Doing it over and over and over. If you sit and do a 5 to 10 minute meditation, just asking, who am I, over and over, your ego will speak up. So it will come up with 1,000 different things, and you can just watch them. You don't have to get emotionally attached, involved. You don't have to argue. You don't have to justify. You don't have to agree or identify. Just watch it. Who am I? Boom. Something's going to come up. Okay? Watch it. Let it go. Try this out. See what comes up for you. See what feels good and see what feels bad and what feels good. See what resonates and what doesn't. This can really, really help you to clarify what it is that your mission here this time on Earth is. And it can really help you. It's really one of the first steps in discovering your unique and very important purpose for this incarnation. So keeping track of that and being aware of that, being aware of your daily activities. If you're on your way to work and you feel anxious, like you don't want to go, what's going on there? How did you end up there? Why are you even in that job? Find this stuff out and ask yourself better questions. So if something's going on that you feel like is not quite in alignment with what you really want, if you want to be an artist or you want to be a healer or a spiritual advisor or, a performer, whatever it is, and you're doing something completely different that doesn't feel good, why are you there? It's not because you don't deserve these things. It's not because you're not good enough to do these things. Somewhere along the line, you or somebody else has not given you the permission that you feel you need to become this thing that you're meant to be. So, and your ego, out of fear, out of desire for security, out of picking up mixed messages along your entire life, has created this safe place for you that really isn't that safe. So try this meditation out. You can have some really, really big shifts from it. If you don't have a big shift in the first time, that's okay. Just pay attention to your feelings. Pay attention to the little insights that you get. Keep track of it. Do the meditation again in a week or so. And let me know how this works out for you. This is a really good one for when you're feeling kind of lost or confused. If you are in a life situation, career, relationship, health situation that you don't feel like you understand why you're there or you don't know how to get out of, this is a really, really good, important meditation to do. So, making friends with the ego, okay, is something worth doing. It's going to be there. We're not trying to kill it off. It's going to be there forever. So we might as well make friends with it and take the high road, okay? So good luck with this. You can do this. Remember to always ground before and after your practice. Remember to connect with your, spiritual guides as you understand them, to ask for guidance and light and protection. And I will look forward to hearing how this works out for you. And I will see you in the next lesson.